I'm supposed to be sleeping now, but fat chance of that now. Right, so as I was driving earlier, and I was thinking about all the problems, I was thinking about the national debt. I can't even remember what it was looking at. But then I was like, right, okay, I'm going to Google it. And has anybody else really looked into it? It's actually insane. So obviously, I'm sure a lot of people realise we're in £2.9 trillion worth of debt in this country. Right, and then obviously the interest on that alone is 114 billion. That's just on debt interest. So we are spending £312 million per day on the current debt. And then I started looking at numbers. I started looking how much is 312 million. And one stat that come up, I don't know if people know this, it's pretty shocking. So 312 million is about the average of 4,000 households were lifetime tax contributions. So essentially, just on that debt interest alone, 4,000 people, so me and 3,999 other households, our lifetime of tax contributions are literally just going on to that repayment. There are so many factors, there's so many conspiracy theories into it, which, I don't really want to get into that. The main thing for me is, there's two things really. Is A, I don't understand why any person in their right mind that's in government will be like, right, okay, let's start excessively spending. So when we're in the debt that we're in, why is it that we're sending billions to Ukraine? Why is it that we're still sending billions in foreign aid? Why is it that we're spending millions of pounds per day? So what is it, £5-6 million a day that's being spent on these asylum seeker hotels? It's absolutely disgusting. We should not be excessively spending. It's that idea of charity starts at home, and this debt that we've got hanging over us, that is our children's debt. That is our grandchildren's debt, because herein lies the sad part. So the government reckon, and this is the thing, this statistic is just, it's false. It's not going to happen. But they reckon they're going to stabilise the debt by 2030, 2031. But the problem is, every single statistic that they wanted to put in place has failed. So that's going to keep getting pushed back and pushed back. So they'll turn around and say, well, debt stabilisation isn't going to be till 2040. Yeah? Because here's the sad factor of it. There is no scheduled date to pay off the debt. So for the next 5, 6, 7 years, I think much longer, I think it's going to be the best part of 20 years, we're not going to be paying anything off on that debt. So the small children that you've got, when they're adults and the situation's still bad, the high streets are still falling apart, or because somebody's like, well, you've got to think of the national debt. We've caused this. It's a travesty, it's a tragedy, and in my opinion, there needs to be a national public inquiry about what decisions got us there. Because Google will tell you some answers, but I think, and this is the thing, if it ends up getting us in more debt, in my opinion, so be it. But at the end of the day, we need to look at actually what's happened. We need to look at the numbers, we need to look at the dodgy side of it, and we say, right, okay, why is it the case? Why is this a reasonable thing? And in all honesty, if it turns out that there's some foul play there, whoever's done that foul play literally needs to be arrested, thrown in jail, and any of their assets that they've got and made up over the years needs to be seized, sold off, and that money needs to go off spending it on the debt. You say, right, okay, Mr. Joe Bloggs, he's got a massive pension, massive mansion, right, sell. That just goes straight off onto the debt. We've got to do this for our children because it's just insane. And there is also there is that added factor, and I'll look at this and I'll say this. One thing I've looked at, it's not something that people genuinely will sit there and discuss. You know, a lot of people on the left, when you try and discuss it with them else. And the thing is, they don't have children. This is the main thing. I think the reason why it's got this bad and we've allowed it to get this bad, it's twinned in with the fact that we as a society have stopped having children. So when you stop having children, you think you stop giving two shits about your own life, in that sense of, if I was sat here with no children, I'll be like, well, fuck it, when I die, I die. But now that I've got the children, it's a case of, right, I've got to start thinking about the future. I've got to start thinking about looking after the future. So, yeah, that's my opinion, is all these politics, like, because there's a lot of them. There's a lot of politicians. Like, for example, when Theresa May came in, she was faced with all these odds, and one of the first things she said was, "Oh, I want to look at unbanning fox hunting. I want us to be able to go fox hunting again." And so, oh yeah, that's because you and your rich snobs friends all did that kind of crap, wasn't it? You didn't think about paying off the debt. You didn't think about anything like that. And I hope to God, with God's grace, if Restore Britain gets into power, we can sort this stuff out. We can really, really look at this. And I do believe, hand on heart, because I've seen him talk about it a few times, that he will try. But I don't know. Let me know what you think, if at all. I'm just waffling again. Because I tell you, it's true though, we literally, when you start having children, your lifestyle just changes, you know. I think to myself, if I didn't have the kids right now, I'd probably be living in a camper van as the life of a pirate, trying to start civil war in this country. Do you know what I mean? Because that's the reality of it. We're so divided in this country. We are more divided than we are when there actually was civil war in this country between, you know, Parliament and the Royalists. But you know, I've got to that point where I've got to keep a steady head, I've got to think sensible, and I've got to get to that point where it's a case of, well, the time's not exactly right now, so I've got to focus on providing for the children, you know. But I don't know. Right, see you later.